The match strikes, the wick flares, and the room fills with light.
Shadows flee, now we see. We're going to be all right.
For light means victory. Light shows us the way.
To leave our fears behind us and build a better day.
A candle in the darkness, a candle for our friends.
A candle to our power, a light that never ends.
On Hanukkah, we fight for our right to be free.
On Hanukkah, we shine a light for you and for me.
On Hanukkah, our fire is there for all to see.
On Hanukkah, we celebrate the torch of liberty.
For my children to thrive and be glad they're alive.
For my beautiful home where I feel safe when alone.
A light for Anne Frank and all who were lost.
To dismantle oppression and for Jewish liberation.
A light of strength to keep bigots at length.
Our candle gleam for our freedom to dream.
A light to create a world without hate.
Shine a light for all Jews in my life.
I am here in the UK, shining my light.
Estou no Brasil, reluzindo a minha luz.
Eu estou aqui em Portugal a brilhar a minha luz.
Hallo aus Berlin, ich scheine hier mit meinem Licht.
A little bit of light dispels a lot of dark.
Am Yisrael Chai, forever in my heart.
Good evening and Chag Urim Sameach. Happy 8th night of Hanukkah. I'm Rabbi Brian Glussman. I am the Director of Outreach here at the Marcus Jewish Community Center of Atlanta. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you to Shine a Light on Anti-Semitism. A special thank you to our sponsoring partners, the Jewish Federation of Greater Atlanta, Atlanta Israel Coalition, and End Jew Hatred. Tonight is a special evening, and we have a wonderful program planned for all of you. Just a moment ago, I was visiting with the young children in the hallway. These children will sing as part of a children's choir in our program, and I was talking, conversing, joking, sweet kids, and I said, "What's the miracle of Hanukkah?" And every single one of them guessed what? What do you think they answered when I asked them, what is the miracle of Hanukkah? What do you think they said? Oil. They all said, well, in the South we say oil, right? They said it's oil. The oil lasted for 8 days instead of 1 day. I have to be honest. You are a mature audience, adults. I have to tell you the real miracle of Hanukkah, according to history, according to scholarship, suggests that it wasn't about oil. The real miracle of Hanukkah is that more than 22 centuries ago, a small group of Jews, the Maccabees, fought for religious survival against their anti-Semitic oppressors, the Syrian Greeks. Imagine a much stronger, greater, bigger, ominous army. Those Syrian Greeks, they were fully weaponed and had so many resources, yet that small group of Jews won. And what's especially important is that this particular war, this battle, is the first recorded fight for for religious freedom in human history. And despite the odds, the Maccabees won. And to this day, we honor their victory. So the question then is, if this is a military victory, if they defended themselves, if they stood up against a much stronger army, then why is it that we're lighting a little Hanukkah menorah? I mean, if this is a military victory, shouldn't we really celebrate it like a military victory? Shouldn't we have a military parade? Shouldn't we perhaps dress like the Maccabees, march like the Maccabees, marching through the streets, shields and swords in hands? But no, we light a Hanukkah menorah. But why? Why do we light a simple candelabra on Hanukkah? Because, my friend, oil, candles, the flame, represents the strength and power of the human spirit. Were it not for determination, willpower, fortitude, a sense of purpose, the Maccabees would have never fought. I mean, after all, it didn't make sense militarily. If any military strategist would have been asked The strategist would have said, don't even start. Stay home. Don't do it. They would have folded. They would have laid their weapons down and gone home, and there would be no Hanukkah. So it's all about the flame. It's all about the spirit. It's all about the drive and the passion. And something interesting, in Hebrew, the word soul is neshama. We've all heard the word neshama, the neshamala, the sweet soul that we possess. That same word, neshama, if you take those letters and arrange them differently, it spells out in Hebrew, hashemen, which means what? The oil. In other words, our soul is like that flame. Our soul yearns and reaches towards the heaven, yearning to do what is right, what is good, to stand up against injustice, to speak out against oppression and hatred. That is, in fact, what our soul is built to do. Sadly, my friends, not much has changed since the days of the Maccabees. Anti-Semitism, Jew hatred shows no sign of slowing down. In fact, anti-Semitic acts are on the rise. I was thinking today that anti-Semitism and the pandemic have a lot in common. Both continue to evolve and change rapidly. And it seems that there's always a new variant. However, at the same time, I believe there's also an effective vaccine. And that vaccine is right there. That vaccine is light. We must not give up. We must continue to fight. And we must continue to shine light, especially during times of darkness. The prophet Isaiah calls the Jewish people to be an or lagoyim, a light unto the nations. God calls us to be a spiritual and moral guide for the entire world. The mitzvah of Hanukkah, by the way, is not to eat as many latkes as humanly possible. I mean, fun, delicious, variations, sour cream, applesauce. How many of you prefer sour cream? Applesauce? Oh, applesauce wins. And maybe a blend. That's not the real obligation. That's not a mitzvah. Spinning the dreidel, fun, yet it's not a mitzvah. Exchanging gifts, who doesn't love exchanging gifts? But not a mitzvah. The mitzvah of Hanukkah is to light the Chanukiah, to light our candles, but not just anywhere. We're obligated to light them where? You know. Not to light them in the basement, not in a back bedroom, but to light them in the window. Why the window? Because it is our job to shine light. It is our job to spread goodness. It is our job, my friends, to bring light to the world. And just remember that first Hanukkah night when we were lighting just one candle. It all begins with one candle. Begins with one. And once we light that one candle, amazing things begin to happen. That light spreads to others, which spreads to others, and here we are on the 8th night of Hanukkah. We'll have a full candelabra. And we light that first candle. It's the candle of hope, and it's the candle of possibility. So we begin our program with the lighting of our Chanukiah, our Hanukkah menorah. And tonight, as every night of Hanukkah, we begin with the lighting of the shamus. The shamus is the helper candle. And tonight we honor our incredible helpers, volunteers led by Lee Tenenbaum, Atlanta Israel Coalition's communications coordinator. Our volunteers' light shines bright, and may they be granted the strength to continue doing such important and vital work. Lee will be accompanied by other volunteers as well as the shamus is lit. All right. Excellent job lighting that helper candle. If we had time, we would explore and learn why it is that we need a helper candle. But we move on, my friends. The first two candles tonight are lit by representatives from AEPI, representing all of our Jewish college groups, as well as Representatives from Hebrew Order of David as we recite our blessings. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher mitzvot v'tzivanu shel Hanukkah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa nisim lavoteinu bayamim hahem. Thanks, guys. Ba'azman hazeh. Amen. And now we continue lighting our Chanukiah. For the third candle, we invite members of the Sabra Riders Jewish Motorcycle Club, these cool Jews. Thank you, guys. And for the fourth candle, representatives from Israeli American Council. And the fifth candle is lit by representatives from the Weber School. All right. Can you guess which one's the student? Thank you, Frankie. We continue now with our sixth candle, representatives from B'nai B'rith Achim Gate City Lodge. Thank you. Our seventh candle is lit by Leslie Anderson of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Atlanta. Thank you so much for everything that you do. The eighth candle is lit by Dr. John Eves, educator and founder of Plot Institute for Blacks and Jews. All right, thank you. Thank you very much for being such great advocates. We appreciate your partnership. Thank you. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce Cheryl Dorchinsky, my great partner in this event. Cheryl is director of the Atlanta Israel Coalition and has worked tirelessly for this event and really dedicated herself to this cause. So thank you, Cheryl, for being here, and thank you for your partnership.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for coming. Truly appreciate it. When I started AIC, it was truly to have everyone unite, and seeing everyone here tonight just truly is very touching and meaningful to me. So together we could truly shine a light tonight and every night. I'm going to introduce Marvell Joseph, who will be our first speaker. Please come on up. The price is right. No. He's a community builder, a strategist. He's in the coalition's coordinator at Maccabi Task Force, a nonprofit dedicated to combating BDS and fighting anti-Semitism on campus. And previously, he served as a legislative assistant for Florida Legislative District 88 and was a APAC Diamond Summer Intern. He's a graduate of FAU with a degree in economics and a student leader there. And he's director of the FSU Black Male Initiative, a campus program to increase retention and graduation rates of black males on campus. Please welcome Marvell. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Cheryl, and all of AIC. Chag Sameach, I think that's how you say it, right? Cool. Thank you. It's about all the Hebrew you're getting from me for I don't know, for the next year. Yeah, like Cheryl mentioned, my name is Marvell Joseph. I work for a small little organization called the Maccabee Task Force. I grew up in a small town west of Tel Aviv. You guys might know it as Boca Raton, Florida. So for me, growing up in a very Jewish town, the idea of anti-Semitism was not really something that was a kitchen table topic, right? Like, I grew up in 7th grade, and every weekend I was at somebody's bar bat mitzvah. I still have my kippahs with the little Just Jew It and little Nike sign, probably my favorite one. So really, when I got to college and I realized that anti-Semitism was a rampant issue on college campuses, I knew I had to do something about it. I'd like to talk about the work that I do, but I kind of want to talk about my story, the story of why I'm here today and why I do the work that I do. My parents emigrated here from Haiti in the 80s, looking for a better life. For them, Haiti at that time and still today wasn't the best place to raise a family. It wasn't the place that could provide their future generations an opportunity. So they took a leap of faith. And that leap of faith brought them to South Florida, giving them, my brother and I, an opportunity to see a better tomorrow. What I didn't realize was that that leap of faith would actually be more than just a leap, but it would help me spiral into a trajectory that I never imagined would happen. I remember being in 8th grade in 2010, and the earthquake in Haiti happened. On January 12, 2010, when the entire world stood still, Haiti shook violently for 35 seconds. It meant a lot to me. Ryan hit me in a place that I never expected it to hit me, mainly because I still had family in the country. My grandmother, my grandfather, all my aunts and uncles, my cousins, people who I called friends, many of them now gone from that tragedy. And I realized at that moment that in a split second, it could all be gone. But that tragedy actually shined light on a relationship that I never even knew existed. Despite being thousands of miles away, Israel, the Mashav, and Israel Aid were one of the first groups in Haiti right after the earthquake. So you kind of sit back and ask yourself, why would this little Jewish country, the only Jewish state in the Middle East, well, the only Jewish state for that matter, come to Haiti to help out? So I started doing some research, started doing some history lessons, started reading and using Google and all those other websites that we kind of became addicted to. And I realized that the relationship between Haitians and Israelis was something that historically mattered. Many of us like to talk about the relationship between Dr. King and Rabbi Abraham Heschel, how together the Black and Jewish community marched together for many years, fighting for civil rights, fighting against racism, fighting for a better life for many people here in Atlanta and the entire United States. But for me, my relationship with the Jewish people was one that happened during World War II, when the Haitian government decided to open up their borders to European Jews, ensuring that they could escape persecution from Nazi Germany and Nazi Europe at the time, and that they could come find a better place. And in fact, recently a letter from, I think, the president of the Polish Jewish Federation came out saying thank you to that government. And then fast forward 4 more years, in 1947, it was actually Haiti who casted the deciding vote, creating the Jewish state. So in 2010, this wasn't just a random act of kindness, although I'd like to think it was. It was one old friend helping another. So because of that moment, I ensured myself and I ensured all of my friends that I would always make sure that the Jewish people and the Jewish state would have a friend in me. But I also ensured to them that I would not come alone. So when I joined the Maccabee Task Force, it was because I wanted to grow that friend group. I realized that the next generation of black leaders was coming from historically black colleges here in Atlanta and here in the entire Southeast. So what we decided to do was take the next generation of leaders to educate them on the issues that face the country, face the state of Israel, and had them join us in the fight against anti-Semitism. On college campuses, while there may be many Jewish students who are facing blatant anti-Semitism, anti-Semitism has also taken another face, a face known as BDS, saying that they're not judging Jewish people, but they're judging the state of Israel. Well, for me, if you're not judging Haiti, but you're judging Haitian people, I think you're still judging Haiti. So we realized as a group, these black student leaders that we came together, we realized that it was important for us to educate our peers on the importance of standing up for Israel, standing against anti-Semitism, standing against BDS. So during this Hanukkah, I want to ensure all of you that as we shine a light on anti-Semitism, we will continue to shine a light on all the other forms of hatred. And the Jewish community will never stand alone as long as I live and as long as our friend group exists. So for that, thank you.
Thank you. We're now very fortunate to have a student with us from Kennesaw Hillel. Aiden, are you in the audience? Come on over. Aiden Okren, he's on our campus representing Hillel, and we'd love for you to come say a few words. Yeah, we want you to walk up here. Thanks. Right here.
Hello. Thank you. Hi, my name's Aiden Okrent, and I'm a sophomore at Kennesaw State University, and I'm also, like Cheryl said, I'm a KSU Hillel board member. Tonight, I'm going to talk about how Hillels of Georgia helps combat anti-Semitism on college campuses through education and awareness. I'm a 2020 graduate of Pope High School in Marietta. In my 4 long years there, I was lucky to have never encountered anti-Semitism directly. So I was surprised and upset when I learned about the recent graffiti incident that occurred there. Was the perpetrator just a kid looking to get a couple views on TikTok, or did they really hate Jews? I'm not sure which motivation would be worse. Allowing ignorance to fester, to never provide people with the guidance or education needed to be more aware and considerate of others, can be very dangerous. According to the American Jewish Committee, 1 in 4 Jewish people in the U.S. were targeted by anti-Semitism in the last year. I'm certain that many of you have experienced or have witnessed the painful impact of anti-Semitism before. Action must be taken to combat rising anti-Semitism in our country, state, and communities. And Hillels of Georgia is committed to combating ignorance and anti-Semitism on college campuses. Our mission is to foster vibrant Jewish life on every campus in Georgia by providing meaningful Jewish experiences to thousands of students on campuses across the state. When I graduated high school and started looking at colleges, a major factor in my decision was if there was a large enough Jewish presence on campus. In Georgia, it can be difficult to find Jewish communities, and it's important to be involved where you can. I wanted to be among friends as I studied, to have a place to spend Shabbat, and to stay connected with my Jewish identity while I was away from home. Kennesaw State University's Strong Hillel is exactly the kind of community I was looking for, and the family I found there filled the need for a Jewish connection perfectly. I feel safe when I walk around KSU campus because I know that I walk among friends. Hillel is an active community on KSU campus. Hillels of Georgia is built upon 5 pillars: Jewish life and learning, social action, community building, leadership development, and Israel education. Every Tuesday morning at KSU, we set up a table in the center of campus. We lay out a bunch of bagels and tubs of cream cheese. We pour some coffee, and we have what we call bagel break. We set up near the main path so that for a couple of hours, anybody can walk by and see us schmoozing and laughing as we enjoy our breakfast outside. Much of the time, the gravitational pull of the bagels and coffee will pull somebody off the sidewalk, and they'll come and join us for a bit. Being an active presence on campus is important because it allows students the opportunity to meet with us and spend some time among the Jewish community. The message we send is, we are kind people, we are here to stay, come join us. We also hold an event called Café Ivrit every week, hosted by Elenoy Granot, who is on a cultural exchange program from Israel. She guides students through learning Hebrew, and we discuss Israeli customs and culture under the campus pavilion. Teaching students on campus about the Jewish homeland and culture is an important and necessary step to increasing awareness of Judaism on campus. Just like with Bagel Break, anybody who wishes to know more is able to sit down and join in on the lesson. Shabbat is another important focus on our campus. While not everybody is able to attend the regular events during the day, we get a great turnout for Shabbat dinners. Across from the KSU Museum of History and Holocaust Education, the doors are held open as we flood in to enjoy a Shabbat meal. Everybody is invited, even those who aren't Jewish. Valerie Chambers, along with some volunteers, bring us all an amazing dinner. Uninformed attendees can look for pamphlets that she created, containing the brachot and the meaning behind the event. For a few evening hours, our Jewish community and friends of the community come together to celebrate Shabbat. During high school, I anticipated my college life with mixed emotions. How will I make friends there? And will I feel safe on campus? How will I find my people? I was surprised and very relieved to discover an active Hillel on KSU campus, a community I could call my home. This year, my sister will graduate high school, and along with my younger brother, they both saw how important a Jewish community is in college search criteria. Since my family moved to Georgia, we've encountered many people who have never met a Jewish person before. I feel like Hillel ensures that their first impressions are positive. Having Jewish-affiliated programs on campus means campus communities will be provided with educational opportunities to not only learn about being Jewish, but use that educational opportunity to combat anti-Semitism and ignorance at every turn. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I think something that Aiden just said really struck home for me when he said that he had a place, he found his place. I'd love for everyone who is here that volunteers and really dedicates themselves to organizations to stand up so we could applaud you, because honestly, that's really what this is about, is getting involved with an organization and helping each other. And stand, please. Come on, I know there are people here because you just lit the candles. So please get involved and make your mark and find your place. It's so important. Whether it's with Atlanta Israel Coalition or one of the amazing organizations here, or an amazing organization that's not here. We're very fortunate now to have Virág Gulyás. She is a former diplomat to the EU, communications consultant, and journalist. She's also the New York City coordinator for End Jew Hatred, a grassroots civil rights movement dedicated to ensure Jewish liberation from centuries of persecution and achieving justice for the Jewish people through direct, peaceful action. As a loud pro-Israel voice, a Hungarian and a non-Jewish Zionist, Virág has created a movement that aims to change the stereotypes about Israel and the Jewish people one day at a time. She regularly writes and speaks about her journey and is well known for her blog, Almost Jewish. Please come up. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And actually, I'm sorry I didn't catch your name from Hilal. You're? Aiden, hi. Thank you for coming. It's amazing what you guys are doing, and I want to give you a t-shirt after. And if Hilal ever needs help, then please contact us, because what we are doing is basically enabling and helping you also on the college campuses. So Anti-Hatred is not an organization, it's an ideology. And we want Hilal to be, part of the fight together. So this is for you. Thank you for the honor and offering the platform for me today, and a special thanks for Cheryl, who trusted me that actually I have something to say. It's really honoring to be here, especially during Hanukkah, because it has so many implications for our lives. And before I talk about the light, I want to start with the darkness. And my story starts with the simple fact that I was an anti-Semite. I know that some of you might frown now or even asking, what am I even doing here? But hold that feeling until the end of my speech and then check back with yourself again. I was an anti-Semite who didn't know any better. I was born in 1985, still under the Soviet regime that was occupying Hungary. We didn't have internet or social media. We were exposed to what was around us. And for me, that meant that I thought that all the Jews are Hasidic Jews. Why? Because I was a ballet dancer and my school was beside the shul. So that was my understanding. Jews are the Hasidic Jews. Limited thing, but again, we need to put back, the story where it belongs to, and that's in the 1980s and 90s, where we didn't have this globalized village where we are living today. So I heard around me all the Jewish jokes. That's how I grew up. Jews rule the world, Jews have the big nose, Jews are rich, Jews only help Jews. Yeah, you got the picture. So while I can bring up a line of excuses for my anti-Semitic views, the fact is that I definitely didn't hold positive views about Jewish people at large and the community. But it's also a fact that if you would ask me, I'm not sure I could have actually told you if I ever met a Jew in person. It's so easy to hate what we don't know, especially as kids, and since we have some younger people in the audience, this is very important because you are the future. So my second story starts in 2012 when I reluctantly started to date an Israeli who actually wanted me to go to Israel. And my answer was that I'm not really sure about that. There are just too many Jews there. I know it's not too kind, but that was me. But then I did go to Israel, and it changed my life forever. On the one hand, that change happened overnight. The moment I landed at Ben Gurion, something happened that I can't explain. It's something deep. But then throughout my trip there, I was there for 3 weeks, and from Rosh Hanikrat to Elat, to the Galilee, to Judah and Samaria, I saw everything that I could see in 3 weeks, and I went to the most amazing Shabbat dinners of my life with Hasidic Jews, with observants, with absolute seculars, and in the middle of a hippie town of Tel Aviv. So I really got exposed to a different kind of Jewishness. On the other hand, the change really didn't happen overnight because it took me months and months of honest self-observation and self-questioning to ask myself, why did I dislike the Jews? Who taught me to dislike the Jews? And who am I, and what is my opinion without all these external noises around me? Since that time, that Israeli guy actually moved on from my life, partially because I wanted to move to Israel and he didn't want to move back. Talk about irony. But my initial curiosity didn't stop with the relationship. I've been to Israel 20 times since then. I did a master program in Jewish studies at Touro College in Manhattan. And 7 years ago, I started to work for free for a Jewish nonprofit organization, and I didn't know that that's going to be my future. Because today, I only work with Jewish and Israeli nonprofits and organizations, helping them to actually better our future and create a future where Jew hatred has consequences, and Jew hatred is something to be shameful of, and where Jew hatred is not socially acceptable as a form of discrimination. So when I ask you to remember the first thought that came to you when I said I was an anti-Semite, now is the time to check back, because there are two main categories. One is ignorance. The other one is conscious hate. I fell into the first group. It is no justification, but there is a huge difference because I just didn't know better. And I really believe that so many anti-Semite people out there just don't know better. So changing is possible, and it is our responsibility to change. And this is the light we can all hold on to. When someone is consciously hateful against Jews or Israel, the change is less likely to happen. But we have seen miracles, so it is possible. But I always say that people who are ignorant, there is a way to bring that light there, and it is our responsibility. And it really warms my heart to see young people in the audience because the light starts with you. And here today I'm going to interject something that you might seem that it doesn't belong to this topic, but actually it does, and that is cancel culture. Why? Because the whole notion goes against everything that we are as human beings, and that is development and change and growth. So cancel culture for me is the most anti-human thing that our generation created. I'm not the same person I was a year ago, and hopefully in a year's time I will be again a different person. And the ability to change, to grow and expand, that's the beauty of our being. So in fact, the greatest compliment when someone tells me, "Oh, I didn't remember you were like this." And I was like, yeah, thanks God, I changed. So cancel culture really goes against everything that is human. And I want it to be your take-home message, because if your neighbor ever has an anti-Semitic view, don't cancel for that, but dig deeper. Why? Is it really hate or hatred, or is it just ignorance? And then there is a possibility to change that. So again, I need to emphasize that I believe in change. A few years ago, a Holocaust survivor, in front of several people in Manhattan, told me that anti-Semitism is in my DNA because I am Hungarian. So no matter what I do and say, it is in my DNA. I cried until home because I didn't know how to respond. No answer felt morally right for me at that moment. Today, I would stand firmly in front of him, because today I know that it is not my responsibility what happened 70 years ago. What is my responsibility is that our future cannot repeat the past. But for that, it always takes two to tango. And for that, our stereotypes needs to be broken down. The you contra me walls has to be shattered. This is the work that I am trying to do. The impact is very, very difficult to measure when someone is working in this niche. But for me, success means that when a Jewish person writes me that because of me, he went to Hungary, a country that unfortunately was part of something horrible back then. He went back and he found his family roots, and he's so thankful he did. And for me, this is success, because today he will go to Hungary, he will feel extremely safe, he will come back with a very different notion about my country, and the past is going to be overshadowed by something that gives us hope and light. Or when a non-German guy told me that because of my article, he went to Israel, and that German will go home to Germany with a very different view about Israel. He will question everything that he will read in the media. This is how change is possible. On the other end of the spectrum, we need to all remember that silence is violence. And this is why I'm incredibly proud and honored that, among others, I actually can be part of the civil rights movement that we call End Jew Hatred. This is the first movement which is really a civil rights movement for the Jewish people. Every other minority group is ready to stand up for themselves, but when it comes to the Jewish community, you tend to help others, but fail to help yourself. A goal of ours is nothing less than to end the Jew hatred in this generation. And it might sound very, high-flying dream or a utopian dream, but I really believe that we can move the needle. And we all have a role in this. We all need to be that light, because also, as the rabbi said, one candlelight can light another one, and that's how you spread the good and the light. And before I get to my closing remarks, let me share with you on one more thought that has really started to work within me just recently, and that is education. We always say how important education is, and then I'm thinking a lot about this, but is it really like just pure education is going to solve the problem? And I realize more and more that without shifting our own personal experience, we won't be able to teach anything else than who we are and what we believe in. What does it mean in practice? If I hadn't changed my views, I would have raised a kid with the same stereotypes, with the same anti-Semitic views. So as long as we don't change as individuals, and that also includes teachers in the school, then we are just giving, again, the same kind of education that repeats history. So, but I often say that if you are Jewish and you have non-Jewish neighbors, invite them for a Shabbat dinner. Invite them for a Hanukkah candle lighting, because you have no idea what that gesture can start in the other person and what the perspective change can really be from one candle lighting, that you just invite them over and explain to them what's happening. So we all have a different role in amplifying this change and bettering our future. Never, ever underestimate yours. Not everybody needs to be a speaker. Not everybody needs to be a journalist. Not everybody needs to be an activist. But you have to be a decent human being, and with that, you are going to know what is your role in making this change happen. So thank you so much for inviting me tonight. Thank you for your hospitality. I don't see the rabbi. But thank you, and each one of you, to being part of the struggle to fight against Jew hatred, whether it comes from conscious hate or just plain ignorance. Really, thank you so much for being the light for our future generation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're very fortunate tonight to have some very talented individuals who have come a very long way to perform for everyone. So if we could give them a great round of applause. Can the Chapel Hill Church Choir come on up? Thank you all. Thank you all for being here. It means a lot to us.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to give you just a quick point. These are six of like 30-ish children that we had in our choir that unfortunately a lot of them, due to sickness and other events and things, couldn't be here tonight. But at our Night to Honor Israel that we host each year at Chapel Hill Church in Douglasville, they performed this song, Salam, that talks about peace to the world. And so tonight we are here to wish that peace for you. And next year we hope to have you all come on over to our side of town, an hour away, and join us for a Night to Honor Israel and hear them sing something new next year.
They
Thank you, kids. I just want to say a word. Again, how long did it take you to get here? An hour?
An hour, yeah.
An hour, and these kids have been sitting in the back in the hallway just waiting for their moment. And that you are here with us from your church singing Hebrew with us tonight just means so much to us. We thank you for your partnership and your support. We were spinning dreidel together a little while ago. They were very cute. So now, thank you, Rod. And Rod's going to lead us in a rendition of, in full-on Hebrew, Ma'oz
We're going to do
Tzur.
Ma'oz Tzur.
Okay.
So I'm not just performing, I'm going to lead. So please sing along, okay? Ma'oz Tzur Yeshuati Lecha na'e leshabeach Tikon bet tefilati Vesham toda netzabeach Le'et tachin matbeach Be'mirham na'beach Azegmor bashir mizmor Hanukkah Celebration. Now we'll do it in English. Rock of ages, let our song praise thy saving power. Thou amidst the raging foes was our sheltering tower. Furious they assailed us, but thine arm availed us, and thy word broke their sword when our own strength failed us, and thy word broke their sword when our own strength failed us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
That was great. Thank you. And I heard a lot of English in the audience tonight. I never learned the English words, so it was great to hear. And beautiful rendition. Thank you, Rod. Safe travels back home, and keep spreading that light with us. We're so glad to have you on the team. So now our final speaker this evening. Gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Gerard Filitti. Gerard is a New York City-based human rights attorney. He serves as Senior Counsel at the Lawfare Project, a Jewish civil rights litigation fund and think tank that focuses on matters of civil and human rights, anti-Semitism, discrimination, and counterterrorism. Gerard previously worked as a litigator in private practice for over 15 years and has broad experience in commercial and complex litigation across a wide variety of practice areas in both state and federal courts. Ladies and gentlemen, Gerard Filitti. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you very much, Rabbi, and I'd like to thank everyone at the MJCCA of Atlanta, the Atlanta Israel Coalition, the Jewish Federation of Greater Atlanta, the Jewish Federations of North America, and the EJH movement for the opportunity to be here this evening. I'd also like to thank Cheryl Dorchinsky for her tireless advocacy, activism, and brilliant organization, and everything she's done putting these things together. Hanukkah for me is a very happy occasion. It's a celebration of light and victory and things that are good, which is unique for me because as a civil rights lawyer, I see people on their worst days. I don't get to see people who are victims of anti-Semitism by ignorance, as Virág points out. I get to see people who are victimized by hate. You know, this last week I spoke with a mom whose daughter was kicked off a gymnastics team because she wanted to take off for the high holidays last month. There's a Jewish doctor who was forced out of his hospital practice because he complained when people walked by, referring to him as the Jewish ghetto and making derogatory comments about him. Then when he complained, he was fired. That's classic retaliation. people who are discriminated in housing, people who are discriminated where they live. This isn't accidental, it isn't ignorance, it's hatred, it's Jew hatred. So I'd like to say, first and foremost, that shining a light on anti-Semitism, which we're here for, is fantastic, but I see it as more than anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism sounds a very aseptic term. You can be anti-tax, anti-gun, anti-abortion, anti-vax. Anti-Semitism is what? It's against Semitic people? No. It's more. What we experience, what the Jewish community experiences more often than not, is hatred. It's not a political situation, it's hate. And talking about that in language that makes more sense, not calling it something that sounds clinical, something that comes out of a factory that's called education, and calling it hatred, calling it what it is, I think is important these days. Well, that's one of the reasons I'm a supporter of the End Jew Hatred movement. Now, Jew hatred, we've seen just in the last week, the desecration of a Chabad house in Kansas City. We've seen a bus of Jewish celebrants attacked in London. We've seen stickers targeting the Jewish community in Los Angeles. Kids attacked in Brooklyn. Kids, mind you. These are not arguments about Semitic people. These are attacks against Jews. That's what Jew hatred is, and none of us should shy away from calling it out. Jew hatred isn't about politics, and it doesn't belong to any particular party. It comes from everywhere. On the one hand, you have people who are avowed white supremacists, people who wear swastikas and march in the streets. On the other, you have people who believe in a Jewish-controlled space laser that starts fires in California. You also have something that's equally pernicious coming from another side, which is a method of study in school, ethnic studies, that sometimes, depending on the curriculum, negates the status of Jewish people as a minority people deserving of equal protection under the law. Sometimes what we learn in school is not healthy, and we have to be very vigilant about this. We must be wary of Jew hatred because we don't want the next generation growing up with hate. We don't want the next generation believing that Jews have white privilege. Some people are very fortunate, others not so. But look at history. Jews have never been celebrated for having white privilege. Jews have always been a minority people that have been affected by the whims of the majority. So what do we see in education as well is not just ethnic studies, but we see a tendency to disregard Jewish perspectives and Jewish voices. We see that pro-Palestinian advocacy sometimes creates a hostile and unsafe space, an atmosphere where Jewish students don't feel welcome. They feel that they have to hide their identity or not be involved because they have a litmus test where they have to say or believe the right thing about a conflict happening half a world away in order to be accepted by their colleagues. We should celebrate diversity and identity, but not sacrifice our identity out of fear. So it should not be contentious to say that Jews are from Judea. It should not be shocking to acknowledge that Jews are indigenous to the land of Israel. No one should be afraid to say that Israel, the land of Israel, is the ancestral homeland of the Jewish people. None of these statements are inherently political, but they express the reality of Jewish culture, history, and religion. Shining a light on anti-Semitism must inevitably be shined a light on the context that in education, we can't be put down for our identity and our beliefs. We have just as much right to express our identity as any other person or group does. And denying Jewish indigeneity to the land of Israel is unacceptable, especially in this modern day. We all purport to respect and advance the inalienable rights of all people to assert their identity. The Jewish people are entitled to no less. Identifying the problems we face, whether it's in education or in life, is not enough. We need solutions. We need to work together to end Jew hatred. And as a lawyer, I will tell you that legal advocacy is not enough. You can file lawsuits and win them. You can influence policy and change it. But ultimately, you need people to be involved. You need activism. You need people who know their communities and know the problems and know the issues to be involved and pick up the phone and talk to their friends, their family, their neighbors, their community, and get together to try to solve these issues. So many tremendous organizations came together here for this event. Shine a Light has been fantastic in bringing together diverse organizations, groups, and people. And I have great respect for the amazing work that all of them have done, not just for the Jewish community, but for other communities. Shining a light on anti-Semitism then is great, but we need more. We need, in this age of global awakening to the plight of people who want to improve their communities and make life better, we need to help them. We need to help ourselves. The last couple of weeks I've been on quite a few flights, and you all know the pre-flight announcement. They give you the safety briefing and they tell you that if oxygen needs to be deployed, put your mask on first before helping someone around you. Well, the Jewish community has always been there to help all the other people around us. But we need to stand up for ourselves more and put that mask on us, because if we keep being victimized by attacks, if we keep being disregarded in our status as minorities, then we don't have the energy or the life to help anyone else as we have done for thousands of years. We are all, I think, people who want to end systemic bias, whether it's explicit or well hidden. We've helped so many groups. We've been shoulder to shoulder for women's rights, for the LGBTQIA+ community, for their equality and inclusion, for demanding a stop to Asian hate, demanding to acknowledge that Black lives matter. We also need to do the same for the Jewish community. We need to acknowledge that there is this thing called Jew hatred and that we demand it to end. We can do this in our generation. That's distinctly possible, and I'm encouraged by everything that I've seen from the people who have spoken here, from the people who are not here, but members of great partnerships and organizations and groups like End Jew Hatred, members of the Jewish community who have come together and engaged in activism. We should never feel ashamed or afraid to stand up for our rights and demand our rights. The only thing we should be afraid of is that the next generation will experience Jew hatred because we did nothing, because we were afraid or embarrassed or compliant, or we thought that we needed to ask someone's permission before taking action. That's not what we should be about as a community. We should be activists. We always have been activists since the time of the Maccabees, and even before. We need to be involved and to fight the injustices that we see around us, not just in other communities, but in our own, the ones that target the Jewish community. Because when you don't say something because you don't think it's that bad, it's a comment that may be taken out of context. Maybe that person's a good person and doesn't really mean it. Maybe they're not really Jew haters, they're just misinformed or misguided. But every time you fail to say something or do something, the situation only gets worse. So when you have, when I have a client on the phone who's been fired from his position for complaining about anti-Semitism, that's because for 17 years no one said anything. For 17 years, no one complained about an atmosphere that was very anti-Semitic, where Jewish doctors and staff were driven out of the hospital. 17 years of silence got to the boiling point that it's negatively affected the lives now of so many people in that doctor's family and in the community. We should never have to ask for permission to assert our rights or stand up for ourselves. No one else does. The Jewish community is no different. What I'm saying is that now is the time for a civil rights movement for the Jewish people. Now is the time for grassroots activism. We've seen to varying degree of success over the last few years what groups of people can do when they come together for the community. Whatever your positions are on what Black Lives Matter has done overall, they stood up for their community and they fought back against what they perceived to be great injustices and what truly are some remarkable injustices. And look at the success that they've had. They haven't had these successes by staying silent. They haven't had these successes by being polite. They've had these successes by demanding their rights, by demanding acknowledgement of their basic humanity that had been deprived for so long. And this resonates with so many other groups as well. You don't get anywhere in life if you don't make that stand. You don't put an end to oppression if you don't do something. End Jew Hated activists have been doing things for a year and a half now. I can give you a few examples that resonate with me because they show what activism is about. Layla Khaled, as many of you may know, is a terrorist. She hijacked planes resulting in the deaths of people. She's celebrated, however, as a Palestinian hero. During the time of COVID, some of you may be surprised to find colleges were inviting her to speak on Zoom to students. Most people, I think, would think that this is a little bit odd and probably not a very good idea. Apparently, colleges these days operate a little bit differently. No one seemed to have a problem with that, even though arguably it's material support for a terrorist organization and it's illegal. The problem is some Jewish communities were afraid to fully stand up for themselves. They demanded an equal time, essentially. They demanded a forum in which to rebut whatever this person said. They didn't come out and say, no, this person should not speak. And it's not about cancel culture. It's not about respecting diversity of views. It's about bringing a terrorist, a murderer into a classroom. People were acquiescent. They wanted to approach this respectfully. But you know what? Sometimes that doesn't work. What End Jew Hatred did, they staged a protest in front of Zoom headquarters. They demanded that Zoom not break the law and allow this person to speak. And guess what? I was on the phone with Zoom's lawyers. They knew that this was a problem legally, and they didn't allow it to happen. That came about through activism. It didn't come out through asking for a forum, through asking for equal time, to asking permission to be heard. It came from demanding that the right thing happen. That's activism. That's what End Jew Hatred does. That's why I'm a proud supporter. We saw the same thing, or a similar thing, in this last summer with Ben & Jerry's. It's one thing to point out that what they're doing, engaging in BDS, is illegal and it's damaging. It's another to point out that this is really just discrimination against Jewish people and businesses. But writing letters, having campaigns of anger, is not as effective as what End Jew Hatred did, which was stage a protest. Get people together just to go down in Manhattan to the store in Times Square, the flagship store there, and protest. And protest the injustice and the discrimination that Ben & Jerry's was engaged in. The store closed its doors for the day. There was an actual reaction to that. And now it's getting traction. People have staged protests in other states. Attorneys general are taking notice. We have an SEC letter gone out by Congress. People want action, but they can't demand action until they see that there's a problem and they understand that people are working to fight it. So merely standing by and complaining about something is not enough. Activism is what we need to do along with just expressing anger, or venting, or complaining, which I'm afraid to say I'm also equally good at. That's something that comes naturally sometimes, is complaining about a situation without actually taking a stand to change it. But that's why I think that End Jew Hatred is such an important tool for advocacy, because it's not just a legal battle that will win the day. It's not just people writing letters or trying to pass a law. None of that matters if people don't get together to demand that change. Politicians, when they're sitting in their offices, they don't pay attention to the petitions. I'm sorry, they don't. What they pay attention to are the people who go outside their offices day after day holding a sign. And it doesn't have to be 1,000 people. It can be one person holding a sign. That person makes a difference. Because a politician who is voting on something will remember that person, will remember that message, will remember the passion and dedication that person had to their cause. That's something that we need more of for our community. We've seen it work effectively for everyone else. We can follow the same and a similar model, but do it better. You know why? Because we have been doing it for so long. We've just been doing it for other people, not for our own community. Well, all of these things are things that I've been very fortunate to be involved with. And I've been very fortunate in the sense that practicing law is tremendous, but we don't always get the change that we need that way. Through activism, you can make a difference, and I feel that with End Jew Hatred, I've been able to help in that direction. It's fulfilling, and I urge all of you to consider what you can do to help the community, what actions you can take, who you can reach out to, what you can organize, what injustice you can point out to and try to find a right for. And the End Jew Hatred movement is there to help. That's what they do. That's what we all do. I'm counsel for that movement. We provide legal advice as well. The point is that we need people working together from different aspects on different things you have legal, you have people activists, you have people who are writing letters. All of this coming together is the sort of activism that we need. And the question that I leave to you is, what will you do to fight Jew hatred in your community? You know it's there. You see it when a developer is not allowed to build a property up because Jew is code word for, not desirable. You still see it to this day in communities where you have to be a certain way to live. We know what code is when you want to buy into an HOA, when you want to retire, when you want to move somewhere. We see it in stores, we see it in our lives day after day. So you know what the problems are. You just need to start being more vocal about it, and I hope all of you are. And if you want to be involved, if you want to take that next step and be an activist, or at least think about how you can help, and we need your help. There are not enough people out there fighting the battle on a day-to-day basis. If you want to be involved, reach out to Cheryl Dorchinsky, reach out to Atlanta Israel Coalition. They've been tremendous partners in the fight to end Jew hatred in this region, in the Southeast, and in the US overall. Reach out and try to get involved, because this Hanukkah, shining a light on anti-Semitism means that we acknowledge that there's a problem. We acknowledge that there's Jew hatred. That's the light that we're shining on it. But we need to actually take action to do something about it. We can end Jew hatred in this generation, and it's imperative that we try. I wish that I were as motivated to be happy at the conclusion of my speech. I always get the unpleasant task of bringing a light on the reality that's not so nice. But I'm always encouraged to see people like you who come out to these events, not just to participate and listen to some exceptional singing and the guitar playing was amazing, but it's not just about listening to music, it's about being involved in your community. And each and every one of you cares about your community to the point that you would not be here if you didn't. And I thank all of you for coming this evening. And on your way out, there are tables outside. Please pick up some flyers. There's information on what End Jew Hatred does. There are flyers on fantastic virtual tours of Israel that I think everyone would be delighted to participate in. I know they're absolutely terrific seeing home on video on live Zoom. There is also a tremendous panel that's taking place tomorrow that maybe you would like to be involved with and listen to. Even these little things, participating in these community activities, this is the start of activism. This is the start of doing something. So please get involved, and thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you for those powerful words, Gerard, and thank you for challenging us and providing us with that call to action. We were blessed with chutzpah, but it's not enough to just be chutzpahdik. Now we have to do something with that chutzpah and really make a difference in this world. So I'll close with just a short prayer, and at the very conclusion, all are invited to pick up sufganiyot, which is a special, lovely jelly donut, specifically for Hanukkah. Jelly donut for all. We ask that you take one. They're in little plastic bags on the table as you exit. It's a tradition to eat a jelly donut because it's fried in oil, kind of like the latke. So we ask that you take one and enjoy your donut on your way home. Be careful opening your squishy jelly donut, however, in the car while driving could be catastrophic. Avinu Shebashamayim, God in heaven, shield us from the forces of hate and evil that continue to hurt and imperil us without reason, and protect us with your sheltering presence. On this 8th night of Hanukkah, when our menorahs are at their brightest, let us remember our holy brothers and sisters who died in the name of baseless hatred, whether it be here in the United States, Europe, Israel, or anywhere across the globe. In their memory, may we always take a stand against injustice, oppression, bigotry, racism, and hatred. Give us the strength to stay faithful to our tradition and uphold the prophet's vision to be an or lagoyim, a light unto the nations, to uphold our covenant, to offer light, to be a moral compass, even in the darkest of days. Bless us with the courage to never be silent, but to stand up like those activists, the Maccabees, and speak out and fight when our people, our brothers and sisters, are threatened. God, we ask your blessing for our dear friends the righteous Gentiles, our non-Jewish brothers and sisters who stand in solidarity in our fight against anti-Semitism and Jew hatred. May we bask in the beauty, the glow of the Hanukkah candles, and may we and the entire world be blessed with shalom, peace, harmony, and love. And together, let us say, Amen. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. And don't forget your sufganiyot. Happy Hanukkah, everybody. Chag Sameach.